Media.
Welcome back. It is exactly 19 after 9 Central African time. We are now going to be joined by Mazhar Khan. He's a member of the Hizb ut-Tahrir in the UK. And obviously, the issue is around the UK Home Secretary this week, or rather last week, having put the Muslim community on notice. He is saying that we need to be very pragmatic with Islam. Mazhar Khan, Salaam alaikum, welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
Hello.
barakatuh. Nice to be on your show.
Lovely to have you here. Thank you for your time. Now, I picked up a week or so ago that the Home Secretary Preeti Patel, and I did mention it on my radio show as well, that she seems to have shown a very strong bias against Muslims in light of the fact that she has called for Hamas to be cited as a terrorist organization. And that's not what we're going to be talking about this morning, but it does indicate there seems to be a resurgence of Islamophobia all around the world. What does a statement like that mean for the Muslims in Britain and obviously internationally? And then your tagline this morning, let's be pragmatic with Islam. What's going on?
Let me begin with by correcting that, actually. I'm not saying let's be more pragmatic. What I'm saying is we need to be more principled and not pragmatic, because pragmatism has actually brought Muslims to where they are today, because we've got very little gain in the West. And the whole Western world, whether it's Britain, Europe, America, or even Australia, their politics is shifting towards xenophobic tendencies. And the real point we as Muslims really need to understand is when you've got a system, it doesn't even matter whether it's a democracy or a dictatorship. Your citizenship is not guaranteed. Because in a democracy, it's just another nice name for mob rule. Because if the majority decide they don't want you, then that's the law. And this is not far-fetched, because history actually shows that. For example, in East Africa, Idi Amin, when he decided to kick out the agents, he decided to kick out the agents. Hitler, people forget, came to power through democracy in Germany. And when he decided he didn't want the Jews to live there, that was the law. And now in Britain, they've crept towards that, and then, in fact, across the Western world. So, for example, in Britain, you may have heard that there was a young girl, 15 years old, Shamima Begum. Now, she left to go to Syria, right? Now, she was never convicted of any crime, but her citizenship was revoked. We've got people who've gone to Syria to help in charity work. They have not been convicted on any crimes, like, for example, Toki Sharif and others. That citizenship has been revoked, and they have got no recourse to appeal. So they are, in effect, stateless people. And they are now introducing a new bill, which is passing through Parliament, to make it even easier to revoke citizenship of people whose grandparents have come from another country. Now, that means people born in this country who have never visited these countries their grandparents have come from can get deported to those countries. And the bill even states that they don't even have to be notified. So, for example, if somebody goes on holiday, their citizenship can be revoked and they can be barred entry back into the country. This is how draconian this law is. And it's already happened. And again, it's not just the Muslims. Because I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've had a scandal in the UK over the last 5-6 years, which was labelled the Windrush scandal.
Yes,
so
the people from the Caribbean, the West Indies, the Windrush scandal.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So when they came
same
over
situation
here,
for them, I suppose.
Well, worse than that, because when they actually came to the UK, they were legally British citizens, because up to 1962, Jamaica and the West Indies, parts of the West Indies, were still part of the British Empire. Yes, it's crazy. Until 1962, they were still part of the British Empire. They were British citizens, and the law stated that any British citizen could migrate to the UK because there was a big shortage of labour, and they could be resident here. Now, some of these people...
And those people were brought over as cheap labour initially. Britain needed to rebuild after World War II, and that's why they brought the West Indians in.
Absolutely, but they were already British citizenship. They didn't even have to apply. Now, some of these people have lived here 40, 50 years. They've gone back to the West Indies to attend a wedding or for some family reason. Maybe some of them have never visited there since they came over when they were 5 or 6 years old. They would take over 3,000 people were affected by this, and their citizenship was taken off them.
So, okay, so let's look at this situation, Mazhar. We know that the Muslim community in particular has been put on notice. And as you said, if the government decides you are undesirable, you could find yourself deported to a land your grandfather came from. Where does that put organizations like yours and people like yourself? Are you not at risk? Because they probably view your organization as some form of an extremist organization.
Yes, they try to label it extremism, but the whole point that they've come up with this kind of legislation is because they have not been able to deal with the questions that the Muslims and other people have been asking about their system. So when we're talking about capitalism being unfit for looking after the affairs of the Muslims. So everybody is Muslims, we are open to open debate. We are open to have a fair debate about which way of life should we proceed in. But what they are doing is they are closing down debate. So when they are saying that undesirable people can be deported, that is code language for saying, don't criticize our values, don't criticize our system, don't criticize our laws, and if you do, promote your religion and your values, we can class you as undesirable. That's what the law is really about, is because the system is spreading. And this is why across Western Europe, even in Australia and America, people are going to extreme types of politics. That's why Donald Trump came to power. That's why right-wing parties in France are gaining more and more support, is because the general public is losing trust and faith in the mainstream political system. And this is a concern for them. So they are now pandering to the extremists, the real extremists, the xenophobic people, in order to pacify them, to keep faith in the system. The system has failed because by and large, it's the immigrant population that are coming here and working here and keeping things ticking along. So if anything, they should be grateful to the people that are coming here, because the professionals are coming here, business people are coming here, and even the low-skilled or unskilled people are coming. They are doing work that the indigenous people are not doing or unwilling to do. So it is a credit to the nation that people are coming here and working here. But because of the...
Carry on.
Sorry, go. Yeah, so I'm saying because of the feelings of the indigenous white people, the government is pandering to their xenophobic feelings. But the failure is because of the system, and that's what needs to be addressed, and that's what needs to be highlighted.
Okay, so where to from here for the Muslim community in the UK, very especially people like yourself and your organizations, and of course, some popular Muslim speakers warn the general public about when they call on Muslims to be pragmatic. You're saying that's not the case, but when we look at the word pragmatic, we know that it's dealing with things sensibly and realistically, rather than ideologically or theoretically. Shouldn't that be the stance of Muslim people in the UK and all around the world? Being realistic, being sensible, and that way also possibly win over or make non-Muslims see the beauty of our people and see the beauty of Islam and not feel threatened by it.
Yeah. So you see, pragmatism has a role to play. However, there are certain places where you cannot be pragmatic. You have to be principled. So look at Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, some people might say, was an extremist. Why did you stay in prison for 26 years? But no, he was making a principled stand, which led to some kind of a change after that. Even if we look, if anybody had reason to be quote unquote pragmatic, if you look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even the previous prophets, the Sahaba were sadistically tortured. Yet Rasulullah maintained a principled stance in holding on to the values he came to convey. And Muslims were made status. People forget this. All the Muslims in Mecca were made status when they were expelled from Mecca for 3 years in the valley outside. And they were stateless, homeless, and starved for 3 years. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam could have said, okay, let's compromise, let's be realistic, let's be pragmatic. But no, Allah ordered them to do that. Otherwise, the Prophet would not allow his companions to be troubled or to face hardship. He would have done anything to make life easy for them. But Allah has mandated on them to be principled, because the help will come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, if we look at the pragmatic, people being pragmatic where they shouldn't be being pragmatic, Muslims have conceded so much that here in Britain today, Muslims are afraid to teach Islamic values in Islamic schools. So they are covering LGBT issues in Islamic schools, and they are teaching, British values, whatever they might be. And they're promoting British values and British culture, but they are ashamed to promote Islamic values. And we've got Muslim politicians even siding and allying with LGBT groups and left-wing political parties. They are gaining from your support, but you are not gaining from their support. So this is a one-way street. It's a compromise of our values. And the basic point we're going to say is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Islam because Islam can accommodate every person. Whether you are a Muslim or a non-Muslim, Islam guarantees your rights and your protection in stone. In stone. And we know when the Jews were kicked out of Spain, they came to the Muslim world. And anybody seeking refugee in an Islamic Khilafah state, in an Islamic state, it is mandated that you give them protection. So we don't look at people's ethnicity. And as long as the world is divided in nation states, that England for the English and France for French, you are always, always at the core of your identity going to have racism. Islam removed that. And Islam made citizenship on the basis of residency of living in the Muslim world.
Where to from here for the Muslims of the UK? And again, with due respect to you and your organization, not everybody would agree with your views because, as you know, other Muslim speakers do call on the Muslim community in the UK to be pragmatic. Here you are saying it's pragmatism versus obviously principles and values, Islamic values. So how do you forge ahead? How do you move forward? How do you make the British people or the government see the beauty of Islam, see your principles, what you stand for, what we as Muslims stand for, and how we are making a contribution to the successful running of the country or the countries we live in?
Okay, there's been a mind shift, unfortunately, that we've got Muslim organizations in the West trying to accommodate Muslims and Islam into a liberal secular world. Islam was never ever designed to be accommodated into a liberal secular world. Rather, Islam came to accommodate the whole of mankind. Whether they believe in Islam or not, Islam will guarantee their rights, and Islam will guarantee their rights to worship, to practice their religion. Even though we don't agree with that, that is in stone in the Sharia. Even to the extent that even to the dying days of the Ottoman Khilafah in Turkey, non-Muslims were given their own court systems to regulate their own personal affairs, something that even liberal democracies don't give to the Muslims. So rather than looking to accommodate Islam in a man-made system, which is never ever going to work because Islam was never designed for that, Muslims globally now to really wake up and face the reality that we need to re-establish Islam, because this was the light and guidance that was brought by Rasulullah to govern the whole of the world. It wasn't just for Arabs. It wasn't just even for Muslims. It was rahmatul lil alameen, a mercy to the whole of mankind that the Prophet came. So that system, when it existed, it expanded from Medina to Spain in less than 100 years. And the majority of the people in Spain were non-Muslims for 800 years. The majority of the people in Spain were non-Muslims. Islam was in India for 1,000 years. The majority of the people in India were non-Muslims. And the Ottoman state, the majority of the Balkans, Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, most of the people here were non-Muslims. Yet for hundreds and hundreds of years, they lived there because Islam guaranteed their rights. So Islam is a practical system which allows for diversity to exist and maintain that. Whereas we've seen now in the West that if you deviate too much away from their liberal barometer, they will crack down on you to bring you back, that you are forcibly assimilated into their state. Islam does not forcibly assimilate people, but by example and by protection and justice is how Islam expanded. And this is what we need to focus on, and this is what we need to return to.
Okay, we've run out of time, and I'd like to really take this discussion even deeper, but perhaps next week sometime. I'd like to hear what you believe would be the answer, how you can work, how Muslims in Western countries can work hand in hand with obviously Western values without compromising any one of our values, but we can delve into it further. Undoubtedly, you are also on the radar as far as the UK government is concerned, because of your very principled belief of Islamic values. But inshallah, we will try and unpack in another program sometime soon. I do thank you for your time and wish you well. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
9:35 exactly. That was Mazhar Khan, a member of the Hizb ut-Tahrir in the UK. And inshallah, we will try and pick up on this conversation at a later date. Right now, we're going to take an ad break, and when we come back, we are going to be talking with Naeem Razak about Bitcoin.
These days, I'm more health conscious